The early morning sun had barely risen over the small Nigerian village of Umudia when a first slap landed on Adana's cheek. Useless girl. The water should have been boiling an hour ago. Uncle Emeka's alcohol-soured breath assaulted her as he raised his hand for another strike. Adana Nwachukwu, 19 years old and orphaned since she was 12, ducked the second blow and hurried to stoke the cooking fire. 7 years under her uncle's roof had taught her the choreography of avoiding his worst violence, while still absorbing enough to satisfy his cruelty. "Sorry, Uncle. I was finishing the beadwork for market day," she said, keeping her voice neutral, neither defiant nor pleading. Both extremes only fueled his rage. "Beads! Always with your worthless crafts." He kicked at her small bag of handmade jewelry hidden poorly beneath a worn mat. Colorful necklaces and bracelets spilled across the dirt floor, representing countless hours of work after her chores were completed, usually by candlelight when everyone else slept. Uncle Emeka snatched up a particularly intricate necklace of blue and gold glass beads. Who would buy such trash? He threw it back down contemptuously, missing how the morning light caught the complex patterns that had taken Adana 3 nights to complete. "They sell well at the market, Uncle," she said quietly, gathering her creations with gentle hands. "Tourists from the city sometimes." "Enough. Make my breakfast, then go fetch water. The yams need weeding after." He stalked from the small hut that had once belonged to her parents, now claimed by their only relative after the car accident that had orphaned Adana. Alone for a moment, she quickly retrieved a small metal box hidden beneath a loose floorboard under her sleeping mat. Inside lay her secret. Nearly 2 years of carefully saved naira from selling her beadwork. Not much, but almost enough for a bus ticket to Lagos and perhaps 1 month's room rent while she found work. Freedom was tantalizingly close. After preparing her uncle's breakfast, Adana headed to the village market with her basket of crafts hidden beneath some empty containers she would pretend to fill with purchases later. At the market's edge sat Chitty, the beggar everyone in the village knew, but few acknowledged. His ragged clothes and hunched posture belied his relatively young age, perhaps mid-20s, though it was hard to tell beneath the dirt and scruff. A battered walking stick lay across his knees as he performed small tricks with pebbles and bottle caps to entertain passers-by, occasionally receiving small coins in his chipped wooden bowl. Adana always greeted him, one invisible soul to another. "Good morning, Chitty," she said, pausing where he sat. He looked up, dark eyes unexpectedly intelligent beneath his matted hair. "Adana, you have new creations today." His voice was surprisingly refined for a street beggar. She glanced around to ensure her uncle wasn't nearby, then showed him a bracelet of intricate red and black beadwork. "Beautiful," he said with genuine appreciation that made her cheeks warm slightly. "You have a gift." "Thank you," she replied, tucking it away as another market woman approached. "I hope the sun is kind to you today." By midday, Adana had sold 3 pieces, carefully adding the money to her secret stash before heading home with the water her uncle had demanded. As she approached their compound, she heard loud voices, her uncle's and another she didn't recognize. Slowing her steps, she strained to listen. "Finest young woman in the village," Uncle Emeka was saying, his voice carrying the oily tone he used when trying to make a favorable bargain. Strong, obedient, and still young enough to bear many children. Adana froze. He was trying to arrange a marriage for her. Again, the last 3 attempts had failed when prospective grooms' families demanded a dowry her uncle refused to pay. "And what dowry do you ask for this paragon?" came the other voice, belonging to a heavy-set woman Adana now recognized as Mama Nkechi, the village matchmaker. "For you, respected elder, a special arrangement," her uncle replied smoothly. "The girl comes with her mother's cooking pots and sleeping mat. Nothing more required." Adana's hands tightened on her water jug. He was trying to give her away for nothing. Such generosity. Mama Nkechi replied with what sounded like carefully disguised sarcasm. "And the girl's consent?" Uncle Emeka laughed. "She's an orphan living on my charity. Her consent is my decision." Adana had heard enough. Entering the compound, she placed the water jug down with deliberate calm, acting as though she'd heard nothing. "Ah, here she is now," her uncle exclaimed with false joviality. Adana, Mama Nkechi has wonderful news. A husband has been arranged for you. The wedding will be tomorrow. Tomorrow? Adana couldn't mask her shock. Even by village standards, this was unusually rushed. But uncle, I don't even know who. Silence. His smile vanished. After all I've done for you, this is how you repay my kindness? With disobedience. Mama Nkechi studied Adana with keen eyes that seemed to convey something beyond her words. The groom is someone you know, child. Chitty, the beggar from the marketplace. The room spun around Adana. The beggar? But he can barely care for himself. He's... Uncle Emeka grabbed her arm, fingers digging painfully into her flesh. You'll marry him tomorrow. A worthless orphan deserves no better than a worthless beggar. Be grateful anyone would take you without dowry. Later, alone in her small corner of the hut, Adana quietly wept as she gathered her few possessions. Her escape money, painfully saved over years, now seemed meaningless. By tomorrow, she would be married to a beggar, trapped in poverty even deeper than she'd known under her uncle's roof. What puzzled her most was Mama Nkechi's involvement. The respected elder was known for making suitable matches, often rejecting arrangements that would harm young women. Why would she approve such an obviously unsuitable marriage? As night fell, Adana made a desperate decision. She would flee before dawn, taking her savings and whatever else she could carry. Lagos would be difficult alone, but anything seemed better than being forced to marry a stranger, especially one who couldn't even support himself. She had just finished securing her money box in a small bundle when a soft knock came at the window. Startled, she looked up to find Mama Nkechi's weathered face peering in. "Do not run, child," the old woman whispered. "Trust that this path, though it seems cruel, leads to a better place than you can imagine." "How did you know I know the heart of a caged bird," Mama Nkechi replied. "But sometimes what appears to be another cage is actually the door to the sky. Trust me, marry Chitty tomorrow. 7 days from now, you'll understand everything." Before Adana could question further, the old woman disappeared into the darkness, leaving her confused and conflicted. Something in the elder's eyes had conveyed certainty, even a hint of conspiracy, that made Adana hesitate in her escape plans. Could there be more to this arrangement than her uncle's cruelty? More to Chitty than his beggarly appearance? With uncertainty clouding her thoughts, Adana hid her small bundle of savings beneath her clothes. Whatever tomorrow brought, she would face it with this last shred of independence secured against her heart. Can you believe her own uncle would force her to marry a beggar? If you've ever felt trapped by someone else's decisions about your life, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Comment below. Would you run away or trust a village elder's mysterious advice? Share this video with someone who knows what it's like when others try to control your destiny. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next when we discover the shocking truth about who this beggar really is. The wedding ceremony, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 20 minutes. No celebration followed, no feast or dancing. Just a brief ritual performed by the village elder under the shade of a baobab tree, with Adana's uncle standing impatiently nearby, and 3 curious villagers serving as witnesses. Adana wore her mother's old wrapper, the only nice clothing she possessed, faded from years but still patterned with subtle blue flowers. She had spent the morning washing in the stream and arranging her hair as best she could, refusing to enter even this unwanted marriage looking defeated. Chitty, to her surprise, appeared cleaner than she'd ever seen him at the marketplace, though his clothes remained ragged. His matted hair had been roughly cut and his face washed, revealing surprisingly handsome features beneath the habitual grime. He leaned heavily on his walking stick, his body hunched as always, but his eyes, when they briefly met hers during the ceremony, held none of the vacancy she'd expected. Instead, they seemed to be studying her with unsettling intelligence. "You are now husband and wife," Mama Nkechi declared, binding their hands together with a strip of Kent cloth. "May your union be blessed with understanding and truth." The elder emphasized the word truth, with a meaningful glance at Chitty that Adana couldn't interpret. Uncle Emeka wasted no time once the ceremony concluded. Your husband's hut is at the eastern edge of the village, he told Adana curtly, already turning away. Don't come back to my home. Your belongings are here. He dropped her small bundle at her feet, not bothering to hide his satisfaction at finally ridding himself of his unwanted niece. Adana noticed her small metal box of savings was missing from the bundle, but said nothing. She had anticipated her uncle's final theft and had secured her money against her body before the ceremony. Come, Chitty said softly, his first word to her as a husband. It's a long walk to my home. They made their way slowly through the village, enduring the stares and whispers of neighbors who had emerged to witness the spectacle of the orphan girl married to the beggar. Adana held her head high despite the humiliation, carrying her small bundle of possessions while Chitty hobbled beside her, his walking stick tapping a rhythmic counterpoint to their footsteps. When they reached the village outskirts, Chitty led her toward a small, dilapidated hut partially hidden by overgrown brush. The structure looked barely habitable, with a sagging thatch roof and walls that leaned precariously. Adana's heart sank. This would be her home now, a step down even from the cramped corner of her uncle's hut. Wait, Chitty said, pausing before they reached the doorway. He glanced around carefully, confirming they were alone, then straightened his posture slightly. I know this isn't what you wanted, he said, his voice suddenly clearer and more articulate than his marketplace mumbling. But I promise you won't have to stay here long. Adana stared at him, noting how his hunched posture had partially straightened and how different his speech sounded. What do you mean? Who are you really? He held up a hand, reverting to his hunched position as a woman passed in the distance with a load of firewood. Only when she was out of sight did he speak again. I can't explain everything yet, but I need you to trust me for a few days. His eyes met hers directly, without the averted gaze of a beggar. Can you do that? Adana took a step back. My uncle arranged this marriage to get rid of me. Mama and Ketchy encouraged it for reasons I don't understand. And now you're acting nothing like the beggar I've known in the marketplace. Why should I trust any of you? A smile briefly crossed his face, a confident expression that further transformed his features. Because I'm offering you a way out that doesn't involve running to Lagos with the money hidden in that pouch beneath your wrapper. Adana's hand instinctively went to the small bundle secured against her stomach. How did you? I noticed things. It's how I've survived. He gestured toward the hut. Come inside before anyone else passes by. I'll explain what I can. The interior of the hut was surprisingly cleaner than its exterior suggested, though sparsely furnished with just a sleeping mat, a small table, and a cooking area. A battered trunk sat in one corner, secured with a padlock that looked far too new and expensive for their surroundings. Once inside, Chitty set aside his walking stick and stood straight, revealing himself to be tall and well-built, nothing like the hunched figure he presented to the village. You've been pretending, Adana said, anger rising in her voice. This whole time, you've been pretending to be something you're not. Yes, he admitted without apology. Just as you've been pretending to be the meek niece while plotting your escape. The observation, so accurately stated, momentarily silenced her. Chitty moved to the trunk and unlocked it, revealing contents Adana couldn't see from where she stood. We'll be leaving tomorrow at dawn, he said, retrieving something from inside. I suggest you get some rest tonight. The journey will be long. Leaving? To go where? I haven't agreed to go anywhere with you. Would you prefer to stay here? Or return to your uncle? He asked reasonably. Because those are your other options at the moment. Adana crossed her arms. Perhaps I'll still go to Lagos, as I planned before being forced into this marriage. With the money you've saved? He shook his head. It won't last a month in the city. You'll end up working in someone's house as a maid. If you're lucky. More likely. He didn't finish the sentence, but Adana knew the dangers a young woman alone faced in the city. Her plan had been desperate, born of limited options. Why should I believe you offer anything better? Instead of answering immediately, Chitty pulled a cloth bundle from the trunk and handed it to her. These are for you, for tomorrow's journey. Unwrapping it cautiously, Adana found simple but clean clothes, a modest blouse and wrapper made of good quality fabric. Far better than anything she'd owned before. There's a stream behind the hut where you can wash, he said, I'll prepare some food." As the evening progressed, Adana watched Chitty with growing confusion. He moved with the assured confidence of an educated man, not the hesitant shuffle of the marketplace beggar. He prepared a simple but satisfying meal with practiced efficiency. Most disconcertingly, he treated her with respect she hadn't experienced since her parents' death, serving her first, ensuring she was comfortable, never ordering or demanding. When night fell, he unrolled a second sleeping mat on the opposite side of the hut from his own. "You'll sleep undisturbed," he said, correctly interpreting her anxious glance. "Whatever you may think of this arrangement, I'm not that kind of man." "What kind of man are you?" she asked directly. A shadow crossed his face. "One who has lived behind masks for too long." He turned away, ending the conversation. "Rest now. Tomorrow will change everything." Despite her suspicion, exhaustion soon pulled Adana toward sleep. Just before drifting off, however, a sound caught her attention. Chitty, believing her asleep, had pulled something from his pocket, a sleek, expensive satellite phone that gleamed in the dim moonlight filtering through the hut's single small window. Through half-closed eyes, she watched as he spoke quietly into it, all pretense of being a simple beggar completely gone from his voice and posture. "Yes, it's done. We'll meet you at the arranged point tomorrow morning." A pause as he listened to the response. "No, I don't think she suspects anything yet." Another pause. "I understand the stakes, Father. Everything will proceed as planned." "Father?" Adana's mind raced. What kind of beggar possessed such an expensive phone and spoke of plans with his father? As Chitty returned the phone to a hidden pocket, he removed his ragged outer shirt to prepare for sleep. The moonlight revealed a muscular physique completely at odds with his beggar persona. But what caught Adana's attention was a distinctive tattoo on his inner wrist, an intricate symbol she recognized with a jolt of shock. She had seen that exact emblem on the luxury cars that occasionally passed through their village, bearing wealthy travelers from Lagos. It was a logo of Okonkwo Industries, one of the largest corporations in Nigeria. Adana's heart pounded as she carefully closed her eyes, pretending sleep. Whoever she had married today, he was no beggar. And tomorrow, it seemed, would reveal exactly what kind of deception had entangled her life. As sleep finally claimed her, one question remained in her mind. Was she being rescued from her uncle's cruelty or traded into an even more complicated trap? Did you see what just happened? The beggar isn't really a beggar at all. Who is this mysterious man with the expensive phone and secret tattoo? If you've ever discovered someone was completely different from who they pretended to be, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Comment below. Do you think Adana should trust him or try to escape during the night? Share this video with someone who loves shocking plot twists. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next when we discover this man's true identity and why he married a poor orphan girl. Dawn arrived with gray fingers of light, prying through the hut's small window. Adana had slept fitfully, her dreams haunted by mysterious symbols and deceptions. She awoke to find Chitty already up, the beggar's hunched posture and ragged outer clothes conspicuously absent. Instead, he moved with the confident efficiency of someone used to commanding respect, packing items into a small bag. "Good morning," he said, noticing her watching him. "We need to leave within the hour. There's water for washing and food to break your fast." Adana sat up, her decision made during the night's contemplations. "I'm not going anywhere until you tell me who you really are." Her voice was firm despite the vulnerability of her position. "I saw your phone last night, and the tattoo. Okonkwo Industries." Chitty paused, then sighed. "Observant. I thought you were asleep." He studied her for a moment. "Very well. You deserve some truth before we depart." He sat on a small stool, his posture completely transformed from the beggar she had known. "My full name is Chitty Okonkwo. My father is Chief Ezekiel Okonkwo, founder of Okonkwo Industries." The revelation, though suspected since last night, still left Adana breathless. The Okonkwos were one of the wealthiest families in Nigeria, with businesses ranging from oil and telecommunications to real estate and manufacturing. "You're saying you're the son of a billionaire," she said flatly, "and you've been pretending to be a beggar in our village. Why exactly?" "It's complicated." "Uncomplicated. Adana interrupted, finding courage in indignation. I was forced to marry you yesterday. I deserve to know why. He acknowledged this with a reluctant nod. My father has traditional views about marriage. He believes the current generation has lost its way, with relationships based on money and status rather than character. Chitty's expression revealed complex feelings about his father's philosophy. When I reached the age to marry, he gave me an ultimatum. Find a wife who would accept me at my lowest, not knowing my wealth or status, or be disinherited. So I'm part of some twisted test? Adana stood, anger replacing shock. Your father sent you to play beggar in a poor village until you found a desperate girl to marry? Was any of it real? Not exactly. I chose this village because it's far from Lagos, where my face might be recognized. I've been here for 3 months, observing, learning who has true character versus who simply follows social hierarchies. His eyes met hers directly. You were the only person who treated me with dignity regardless of my apparent status. Even before this arrangement, I had decided you were the one I would ask. Ask. Adana laughed bitterly. There was no asking. My uncle sold me to you without dowry because he thought you were a worthless beggar. That wasn't my intention, Chitty replied, having the grace to look uncomfortable. When I approached Mama Nkechi about a proper courtship, she told me about your situation, that your uncle was planning to marry you off to a much older man from another village who had offered to take you without dowry, a palm oil merchant with 3 wives already. He paused. She suggested we expedite matters to prevent that fate, and I agreed. Perhaps that was presumptuous. The information stunned Adana. Her uncle had been planning to send her away regardless, and to a situation potentially far worse than marriage to a supposed beggar. Still, so Mama Nkechi knew who you really are all along? Yes. She worked for my family when she was younger, before returning to village life. She recognized me despite my disguise and has been my confidant here. He glanced at the strengthening daylight. We really must go. I'll answer more of your questions on the journey. Adana considered her options. She could refuse to go, but that meant returning to her uncle or struggling alone in the village as a newly married woman whose husband had abandoned her. Neither prospect appealed. Despite her anger at the deception, practical considerations won out. Fine, but this conversation isn't finished. They prepared quickly, Adana changing into the new clothes Chitty had provided. Simple but of far better quality than anything she'd worn before. Chitty removed his beggar disguise entirely, revealing well-made clothes underneath that transformed him into a different man entirely. They left the hut with their few possessions as the village began to stir, taking a path that avoided the main areas where they might be observed. After 20 minutes of walking through brush, they emerged onto a dirt road where a sleek black SUV with tinted windows waited. A uniformed driver stepped out and opened the rear door. "Good morning, Mr. Okonkwo." "Thank you, Joseph," Chitty replied, gesturing for Adana to enter the vehicle. She hesitated at the door, the luxurious interior of the SUV confirming everything and nothing all at once. "Where are we going?" "Lagos," Chitty said simply. "To my family's home. It's time you saw the truth of your new life." The journey took hours, transitioning from rural landscapes to increasingly developed areas, finally entering the congested metropolis of Lagos. Adana, who had never been to the capital, found herself pressed against the window despite her lingering anger, taking in the towering buildings, busy markets, and bustling streets with undisguised wonder. Throughout the drive, Chitty explained more about his family and the unusual test his father had created for him. "My father grew up in poverty," he told her. "His success came through tremendous hard work and some lucky opportunities. But he's watched his friends' children, raised in wealth, make disastrous marriages to people who only wanted their money. He became determined that wouldn't happen to me. So he made you pretend to be destitute to find a wife?" Adana couldn't keep the judgment from her voice. "He gave me a choice. Spend 6 months living humbly, finding someone who would accept me without wealth, or have an arranged marriage of his choosing." Chitty shrugged. "I chose the option that at least gave me some control over my future. And what about my choice?" Adana asked quietly, "Did either of you consider that?" The question hung between them as the SUV turned through massive gates into a private compound that took Adana's breath away. Manicured gardens surrounded a mansion that looked like something from the foreign movies occasionally shown on the village's only television. "We're here," Chitty said unnecessarily as the vehicle stopped before imposing front doors. As they stepped out, Adana froze, overwhelmed by the grandeur surrounding them. Servants approached to take their bags, regarding her with poorly concealed curiosity. "This is your home?" One of them, Chitty answered, then seemed to realize how that sounded. "My father's main residence. I have an apartment in the city and a house at the beach." Before Adana could process this, the front doors opened to reveal an imposing man in his 60s, expensively dressed and carrying himself with unmistakable authority. "So you've returned," the man said, his assessing gaze moving from his son to Adana. "And this is your choice?" "Father," Chitty acknowledged with a respectful nod. "This is Adana Nwachukwu, now Adana Okonkwo, my wife." Chief Okonkwo's expression revealed nothing as he examined Adana from head to toe. "Bring her inside. We have much to discuss." As they followed the patriarch into the mansion, Adana fought against feeling diminished by the opulence surrounding her. The marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and priceless artwork represented a world so far removed from her experience that it seemed almost unreal. They were led to a formal sitting room, where Chief Okonkwo took a seat that resembled a throne more than a chair, gesturing for them to sit across from him. "So," he began without preamble, "you married my son believing him to be a beggar?" It wasn't a question, but Adana answered anyway. "I was given no choice in the matter, sir. My uncle arranged it." "Interesting." His penetrating gaze moved to his son. "You didn't court her properly, then?" Chitty shifted uncomfortably. Circumstances required adaptation of the original plan. Her uncle was going to marry her to someone else, someone who would have treated her poorly. "I see." The older man turned back to Adana. "And now that you know the truth, that you've married into one of Nigeria's wealthiest families, how do you feel?" The direct question demanded an equally direct answer. Adana straightened her spine, meeting the intimidating man's gaze. "Honestly, sir, I feel deceived, manipulated, used as a pawn in a game whose rules no one explained to me." She took a deep breath. "I understand your son had his reasons, and perhaps even good intentions. But I was never given the dignity of choice, not by my uncle, not by Mom and Ketchy, and not by your son." A charged silence followed her words. Chitty looked startled by her frankness, while the chief's expression remained unreadable. Finally, Chief Okonkwo spoke. "Most would be celebrating their good fortune, rather than questioning how it came about." "I don't measure fortune only in naira, sir," Adana replied. The hint of a smile touched the older man's lips, there and gone so quickly Adana wasn't certain she'd seen it. "Indeed." He rose abruptly. "You must be tired from your journey. A room has been prepared for you. Separate accommodations until you've had time to adjust to these revelations." He gestured to a hovering servant. "Amaka will show you to your room. We'll continue this discussion at dinner." As Adana followed the maid from the room, she heard Chief Okonkwo address his son in a low voice. "She is Spirit, this village girl you brought home. Whether that an asset or a liability remains to be seen." The bedroom Adana was led to would have housed her entire village. A massive four-poster bed dominated the space, with sitting areas, a private bathroom gleaming with marble and gold fixtures, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens. "Will Madam require anything else?" the maid asked deferentially. "Madam," the title felt alien applied to her. "No, thank you. I just need some time alone." When the door closed, Adana sank onto the edge of the enormous bed, finally allowing the emotions of the past 2 days to overwhelm her. Her life had been completely upended, first by a forced marriage to a beggar, then by the revelation that her husband was actually heir to an empire. She should be grateful, she supposed. Many would see this as a fairy tale, the poor orphan elevated to unimaginable wealth and status overnight. But all she felt was a profound sense of having been manipulated like a chess piece by everyone around her. Crossing to the window, Adana looked out at the carefully controlled landscape below, beautiful but artificial, much like the situation she found herself in. Whatever came next, one thing was certain. She would no longer be a passive participant in her own life story. If they wanted an Okonkwo wife, they would have to accept an Okonkwo who thought and acted for herself. Can you believe it? He's the son of one of the richest men in Nigeria. This whole time he was testing her to see if she would love him when he was poor. If you've ever discovered someone was hiding their true identity from you, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Comment below. Do you think Adana should be angry about the deception or grateful for her new wealthy life? Share this video with someone who knows appearances can be completely misleading. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next when Adana faces her biggest test yet in the world of wealth and power. Dinner in the Okonkwo mansion proved to be an elaborate affair. Adana, freshly bathed and dressed in clothes provided by the house staff, a simple but elegant blue dress that fit surprisingly well, was escorted to a dining room larger than her uncle's entire compound. Crystal chandeliers illuminated a table long enough to seat 20, though only 3 places were set. One at the head for Chief Okonkwo, and 2 on either side. Chidi was already seated, now dressed in an expensive suit that completed his transformation from village beggar to corporate heir. He rose when she entered, his expression a mixture of apprehension and admiration. "You look beautiful," he said quietly as a servant pulled out her chair. Adana acknowledged the compliment with a nod, but remained silent. Her few hours alone had been spent considering her position and planning her approach to this new reality. Chief Okonkwo arrived moments later, commanding the room's attention without effort. Servants immediately began serving an elaborate 5-course meal featuring dishes Adana had never seen before. "I trust your accommodations are satisfactory," the chief asked after the first course was served. "They're more than adequate, thank you," Adana replied, carefully navigating cutlery she'd never used before by watching which pieces Chidi selected. "More than adequate," the older man repeated with a hint of amusement. Most young women would be effusive with praise for a suite that cost more to furnish than many earn in a lifetime. Adana met his gaze directly. "I imagine most young women you encounter haven't spent their lives sleeping on a mat in the corner of a hut, sir. My reference points are different." A charged silence followed her response. Chidi looked uncomfortable, but Chief Okonkwo's expression showed something that might have been approval. "Indeed they are, which brings us to the matter at hand." He set down his fork with deliberate precision. "My son has completed his task, finding a wife who accepted him at his presumed lowest point. The question now is what to do with you." "Father," Chidi began, but was silenced by a raised hand. "There are 2 options before us," the chief continued as though his son hadn't spoken. "First, we can dissolve this marriage immediately. You would be generously compensated, of course, enough to establish yourself comfortably anywhere in Nigeria, with your education fully funded should you wish to pursue it." Adana carefully placed her own utensils down, fighting to keep her expression neutral despite the casual way her marriage was being discussed as a business transaction. "And the second option? You remain married to my son, becoming an Okonkwo in truth, not just in name. You would be provided with tutors to remedy the gaps in your education, trainers in social etiquette, and whatever else is needed to prepare you for life as part of this family." His eyes narrowed slightly. "But I warn you it won't be easy. Society can be cruel to those it perceives as outsiders, regardless of the name they bear." Adana absorbed both options, aware of Chidi watching her intently. Neither choice acknowledged what she might want beyond the binary of leaving with money or staying with status. "Is there a third option?" she asked. Both men looked startled. "What did you have in mind?" Chief Okonkwo asked. "An option where I'm not merely accepting or rejecting terms created by others." Adana's voice gained strength as she continued. "Where I have agency in determining my own path forward, whether that's within this family or outside it." Chidi looked at his father nervously, but the older man's surprise had already transformed into something resembling interest. "Elaborate," he commanded. "If I stay, I want to be treated as a partner to your son, not a project to be molded into some predetermined idea of an appropriate wife. I want education, yes, but directed toward goals I choose." Her hands were trembling slightly, but she kept them steady on the table. "And if I go, I want more than money. I want the opportunity to build something meaningful myself, not just be a charity case with generous settlement. When she finished, Chief Okonkwo studied her with an intensity that would have intimidated her just days ago. Now, having endured her uncle's cruelty and the upheaval of her entire life, she found she could meet his gaze without flinching. "You speak as though you have leverage in this situation," he finally said. "I speak as someone who has nothing left to lose," she countered. "You can offer me wealth or send me away with nothing. Either way, I've already survived losing everything once before." An unexpected chuckle escaped the older man. He turned to his son. "She certainly doesn't lack courage. Perhaps your instincts weren't entirely misguided." To Adana's surprise, he then raised his glass in what appeared to be a toast to her. "Very well, Adana Okonkwo. Neither option as presented. Instead, a test of your own." "A test?" she repeated cautiously. "Tonight, our company hosts a charity gala for our educational foundation. Hundreds of Nigeria's most influential people will attend." He gestured to a servant, who immediately approached with a tablet displaying event details. "You will take charge of the final preparations and serve as hostess alongside my son." Adana stared at him in disbelief. "You want me, someone who has never attended such an event, much less hosted one, to manage a major gala in just a few hours?" "Precisely." His smile held no warmth. "If you wish to be more than a project or a charity case, prove your worth on your own terms. Success would demonstrate potential worthy of that third option you seek. And if I refuse this test, then you clearly have less courage than your words suggest, and we revert to the original options." Adana glanced at Chitty, who looked equally shocked by his father's challenge. "Father, this is impossible. Even with a team of event planners, Adana has no experience with—" "No," Adana interrupted. "I accept." Both men turned to her with surprise. "You accept?" Chief Okonkwo repeated. "Yes." Adana straightened in her chair. "But I'll need complete access to whatever staff is already working on the event, and I'll need Chitty to brief me on the guests and expectations." A gleam of something, perhaps respect, flickered in the chief's eyes. "Granted. You have 3 hours until guests begin arriving." He rose from his chair, signaling the end of the meal. "Impress me, village girl." After he departed, Chitty turned to Adana with concern. "You don't have to do this. It's an impossible task designed to make you fail." "Perhaps," she acknowledged, "but it's the only option that allows me to demonstrate who I truly am, not just who others perceive me to be." She stood, suddenly energized by the challenge. "Now, show me to the event planning team. We have work to do." The next 3 hours passed in a whirlwind. Adana was introduced to an efficient team of event planners who had already handled most of the logistics. Catering, music, security, and decor were all well in hand. What remained was overseeing final details and, more importantly, establishing the tone and character of the event. After a quick briefing on the Foundation's work providing educational opportunities to underprivileged children, Adana made a decision that initially shocked the planning team. "We need to change the central display," she insisted, pointing to an elaborate ice sculpture and flower arrangement plan for the ballroom entrance. "But, madam, everything's been ordered and paid for," the head planner protested. "I understand, but it sends the wrong message." Adana sketched quickly on a notepad. "Instead of abstract luxury, we should showcase what the Foundation actually accomplishes." As the team scrambled to implement her vision, Chitty watched with growing admiration. The woman directing these seasoned professionals with natural authority seemed worlds apart from the quiet village girl who had treated him kindly at the marketplace. When he questioned one of her decisions, replacing the classical quartet with a youth choir from one of the Foundation schools, she explained her reasoning with clear logic. "These guests see beautiful flowers and hear classical music at every event they attend," she told him. "But how many have actually witnessed the results of their charitable giving? The children's faces and voices will create a connection that crystal and roses cannot." By the time guests began arriving, the ballroom had been transformed. While still elegant, it now featured displays of student artwork, performances by scholarship recipients, and testimonials from families whose lives had been changed by educational opportunities. Adana, Quickly dressed in a gown provided by the household staff and given a crash course in basic etiquette by Chitty, greeted guests alongside her husband. Though nervous, she found that genuine interest in people transcended her lack of social polish. "What a refreshing approach," commented the wife of a government minister, gesturing toward a display where guests could sponsor specific students. "Usually these events are so disconnected from their actual purpose." That was precisely Adana's intention. Chitty replied with evident pride, "To remind us all why we're really here." As the evening progressed, Adana navigated conversations with politicians, business leaders, and social elites with a combination of honesty and natural grace. When asked about her background, she neither hid her origins nor apologized for them. "I grew up without access to proper education," she told a university president, "which is why I believe so strongly in the Foundation's mission. Every child deserves the opportunity to develop their potential." By the time Chief Okonkwo arrived, fashionably late, the gala was in full swing. He moved through the crowd, noting the changes and observing Adana's interactions with his peers. His expression revealed nothing, but he watched her with unrelenting attention. The defining moment came when the CEO of a rival corporation approached Adana while Chitty was occupied elsewhere. "So you're Okonkwo's new daughter-in-law," the man said, his tone condescending. "Quite a leap from village life to all this, isn't it? You must wake up every day grateful for your good fortune." Several nearby guests paused to listen, creating a small but attentive audience. Adana smiled pleasantly. "Actually, sir, I wake up every day grateful for the opportunity to make a difference, just as I'm sure you must feel about your company's work with children in the Niger Delta." The man's expression froze. His corporation had recently been implicated in environmental damage affecting communities in that region, while publicly claiming to support children's health initiatives there. "Ah, yes, of course," he stammered, wrong-footed by her knowledge and direct reference. "Perhaps you'd like to see our new sponsorship program?" Adana continued smoothly, guiding him toward the student displays. "I believe in actions matching words, don't you?" From across the room, Chief Okonkwo observed the exchange, his first genuine smile of the evening crossing his features briefly. Later, as the event concluded to widespread praise, the chief approached Adana and Chitty as they thanked departing guests. "Walk with me," he commanded once they were alone. He led them to his private study, a wood-paneled sanctuary filled with books and mementos of his business achievements. Taking a seat behind an imposing desk, he regarded Adana thoughtfully. "You transformed an ordinary charity event into something memorable," he said, without preamble. "More importantly, you secured commitments for twice the expected donations." "The Foundation's work sells itself when properly presented," Adana replied. "I simply made it visible." "Indeed." He steepled his fingers. "You also handled Ibuka's attempt to embarrass you with remarkable skill. How did you know about his company's troubles in the Delta?" "Chitty briefed me on key guests before the event," she explained. "I listened carefully and have good memory." The chief nodded slowly. "Most would have used such information as a weapon. You used it as a mirror." He leaned back in his chair. "Perhaps there is something to be said for character formed outside the corrupting influence of wealth." He opened a drawer and removed the document, sliding across the desk. "Your third option, as requested. Terms for moving forward that acknowledge your desire for agency, while establishing necessary parameters for becoming part of this family." Adana glanced at Chitty before reaching for the document. "Read it carefully," Chief Okonkwo advised. "It outlines educational opportunities, potential roles within our foundation or business interests, and yes, an independent allocation of funds for your own projects." As she scanned the surprisingly generous terms, the chief addressed his son. "She will need your support in navigating this new world, but not your direction. Remember that distinction." "Yes, father," Chitty replied, looking at Adana with new understanding. When she finished reading, Adana placed the document back on the desk. "These terms are acceptable with one addition." Both men looked at her in surprise. "I want to establish a craft training program for orphan girls in my village, using my parents' land that my uncle has been holding." Her voice held firm conviction. Many lack formal education but have natural talents that could provide sustainable livelihoods with proper training and market access. Chief Okonkwo studied her for a long moment, remembering your roots even as you prepare to ascend. Admirable. He made a note on the document. Consider it done. We'll depart for your village tomorrow to handle the property transfer and announce the program. As they left the study, Chitty took Adana's hand for the first time since their wedding ceremony. This time not as performance, but genuine connection. You continue to amaze me, he said softly. I thought I was rescuing you, but perhaps it's the other way around. Adana allowed her fingers to remain entwined with his, the first tentative acceptance of their unusual bond. Perhaps we're rescuing each other, she suggested. You from your father's rigid expectations, me from my uncle's cruelty. Tomorrow they would return to her village, not as beggar and reluctant bride, but as powerful allies with resources to create meaningful change. The journey ahead remained uncertain. But for the first time, Adana felt she was charting her own course rather than being swept along by others' decisions. And that, more than wealth or status, was a true transformation. Did you see how she turned the tables and impressed even the powerful Chief Okonkwo? Our village girl is proving she has what it takes to thrive in the world of wealth and power. If you've ever been underestimated and proved everyone wrong, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Comment below. What would you have done if you were given just 3 hours to host a major event for Nigeria's elite? Share this video with someone who knows that true class and intelligence can't be bought. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our final chapter when Adana returns to her village in gold cars to confront her cruel uncle. 7 days after Adana had left her village as a reluctant bride of supposed beggar, a convoy of 3 vehicles approached the same dusty road that led to Umudia. Leading the procession was a Mercedes G-Wagon, its exterior gleaming in metallic gold that caught the morning sunlight like a mobile treasure. Behind it followed 2 Range Rovers in matching gold finish, their tinted windows concealing the occupants while announcing their importance through sheer opulence. Inside the lead vehicle, Adana sat beside Chitty, watching the familiar landscape of her childhood appear through the windshield. She wore a simple but elegant outfit, a modernized version of traditional attire in royal blue and gold, with subtle accessories that whispered rather than shouted wealth. Her hair was styled in an elaborate updo that honored traditional Nigerian aesthetics while incorporating contemporary elements. Nervous? Chitty asked, noticing her silence as they approached the village outskirts. Not nervous, she replied after consideration. Just processing how much has changed in so little time. She turned to him with a small smile. A week ago I was planning to run away to Lagos with my life, savings hidden in a metal box. Now I'm returning in a gold car with more resources than I ever imagined possible. Chief Okonkwo, seated across from them, looked up from his tablet. Remember, this isn't about flaunting wealth. It's about establishing the foundation for your educational initiative and resolving the matter of your parents' property. I understand, sir, Adana assured him. Though I admit the gold car seemed designed precisely for flaunting, the older man's lips twitched in what might have been amusement. Sometimes a demonstration of power is necessary to ensure certain messages are properly received. His gaze sharpened, particularly when dealing with those who understand nothing but power. Adana knew he was referring to her uncle. During the past days of intensive planning for her craft training program, she had shared more details about Uncle Lemika's treatment of her and his manipulation of her parents' property. The chief's response had been coldly pragmatic. Some people require legal persuasion. Others respond only to displays of superior position. We will employ both. As they entered the village, the effect was immediate and exactly what the chief had intended. Children ran alongside the gleaming vehicles, their excited shouts drawing adults from their homes and daily activities. By the time the convoy reached the village center, a crowd had gathered, murmuring in awe at the unprecedented display of wealth in their modest community. When the vehicles stopped, drivers emerged to open doors with formal precision. Chief Okonkwo exited first, his imposing figure enhanced by traditional chieftaincy attire that signaled his status. Chitty followed, now dressed as a corporate heir in a perfectly tailored suit that bore no resemblance to his former beggar disguise. Adana emerged last, feeling the collective gasp of the villagers as they recognized the orphan girl who had left a week earlier as a beggar's bride. She stood tall, acknowledging their stares with dignity rather than arrogance. The contrast between her former life and current appearance was stark enough without her adding condescension. "Adana?" A familiar voice broke through the crowd's murmurs as Mama Nkechi approached, her weathered face breaking into a knowing smile. "You have returned as I said you would." "Yes, Mama," Adana replied, stepping forward to embrace the elder with genuine affection. Despite her role in the deception, Adana had come to understand the woman had acted to protect her from a worse fate. "Thank you for your wisdom when I couldn't see the path ahead." The village elder turned to acknowledge Chief Okonkwo with a deep bow. "My chief, it has been many years." "Indeed, Nkechi, you've served your purpose well as always." He inclined his head with surprising respect. "Your judgment regarding my new daughter-in-law was impeccable." This exchange confirmed what Adana had suspected. Mama Nkechi's connection to the Okonkwo family ran deeper than just past employment. She had been their eyes in the village, perhaps for years. As whispers spread to the crowd about Adana's apparent transformation into wealth, a commotion at the back announced Uncle Emeka's arrival. He pushed to the gathered villagers, his expression cycling through confusion, shock, and rapidly calculating greed as he took in the scene. "Adana," he called with sudden, false joviality. "My beloved niece has returned to visit her family. What a blessing." The dramatic shift from the cruel guardian who had discarded her without dowry to this fawning performance would have been laughable if it weren't so transparent. Adana felt momentary pity for him. He had no idea who he was attempting to manipulate. "Uncle," she acknowledged coolly as he approached, "I've returned on business matters, not a family visit." His smile faltered at her tone, but quickly recovered. Of course. And who are these distinguished gentlemen?" His eyes darted between Chitty and the chief, clearly trying to identify which was the source of the obvious wealth. "This is my husband, Chitty Biro Okonkwo," Adana said, gesturing to Chitty, "and his father, Chief Ezekiel Okonkwo, head of Okonkwo Industries." Uncle Emeka's face paled as the names registered. Even in their remote village, Okonkwo Industries was known as one of Nigeria's largest corporations. But your husband was," he stammered, looking at Chitty in confusion. "Not what he appeared to be," Adana finished for him. "Much like your guardianship of me was not what it appeared to be to the village." The chief stepped forward, his presence immediately commanding attention. "We're here to resolve the matter of Adana's inheritance, the land and property left by her parents that you've been managing since their deaths." Uncle Emeka's expression shifted between fear and calculation. There must be some misunderstanding. Everything was left in my care as her guardian. "Until she married or turned 21, interrupted a new voice as a distinguished man in a suit emerged from the third vehicle. "According to the actual terms of her parents' will, which my firm has obtained from regional records." The lawyer approached, carrying a portfolio. "Mr. Emeka Nwachukwu, I represent the Okonkwo family and, by extension, Mrs. Adana Okonkwo. We have documentation showing you have been illegally occupying property belonging to your niece and misappropriating rental income from the second parcel land for the past 7 years." A crowd had gathered now, village elders and neighbors watching with undisguised interest as Uncle Emeka's face contorted between expressions. "This is family business," he protested weakly, "not for public discussion." "On the contrary," Chief Okonkwo replied, "your niece's mistreatment and the theft of her inheritance are very much community matters, particularly as she intends to use her recovered property for the benefit of this village." At this, murmurs of interest spread through the onlookers. Adana stepped forward, addressing the gathered villagers rather than just her uncle. "My parents' land will be used to establish a craft training center for orphaned and disadvantaged girls, providing education and economic opportunities that weren't available to me." The announcement was met with approving nods and exclamations, particularly from the women present. "Additionally," she continued, "I'll be working with Mama Nkechi to identify young people with academic potential for scholarships through the Okonkwo Educational Foundation." Uncle Emeka, seeing his position in the community rapidly deteriorating, attempted a new approach. "My dear niece, how wonderful that you want to help our village. Of course I fully support this and will assist in any way. As your loving uncle, I've only ever wanted what's best. Enough. Adana's voice cut through his false sentiment like a knife. You have until tomorrow to remove your possessions from my parents' house and provide all documentation relating to the property. The lawyer has prepared papers for your signature acknowledging the transfer. For a moment, it seemed Uncle Emeka might protest further, but glance at Chief Okonkwo's impassive face, and the lawyer's portfolio silenced him. With as much dignity as he could muster, he nodded stiffly and retreated through the whispering crowd. As the formal business concluded, Adana found herself surrounded by curious villagers, many of whom had never shown her kindness during her years of hardship. She met their sudden interest with polite reserve, neither snubbing nor embracing their newfound respect. Later, as she stood on her parents' land, soon to be transformed into an educational center, Chitty joined her in a rare moment of solitude. You handled that with remarkable grace, he observed. Many would have been tempted toward more vindictive measures after what your uncle did. Adana gazed across the land that represented both her past and future. Revenge would change nothing about the past and limit what I can build for the future. She turned to him with quiet certainty. The best response to cruelty isn't more cruelty. It's creating something meaningful that would have been impossible had you remained trapped in anger. He studied her with growing admiration. In just 7 days, you've navigated elite social circles, impressed hardened business associates, and now returned to confront your past with wisdom beyond your years. I'm beginning to think my father's tests reveal more about what I need than what you deserve. Before she could respond, they were approached by Mama Nkechi, who had broken away from the dispersing crowd. Walk with an old woman? She requested, leading them toward a mango tree at the property's edge. When they were alone, the elder turned to Adana. Now you understand why I insisted you trust a path that seemed so cruel at first. Yes, Adana acknowledged, though I still wish there had been more honesty from beginning. Mama Nkechi smiled. Would you have believed the truth? That a billionaire's son was disguised as a beggar, seeking a bride of true character? Probably not, Adana admitted. Some journeys cannot be explained, only experienced. The old woman's gaze shifted to include Chitty. I knew your father when he was younger than you are now, before his wealth, when he worked with his hands and dreamed of a better future. I see that same quality in both of you now. You've served my family for decades, Chitty said, yet chose to live here in the village rather than in comfort in Lagos. I serve truth, not comfort, she corrected gently. And sometimes truth is found more easily in simple places. Her weathered hand gestured toward the surrounding land. What you build here will matter more than gold cars and mansions, though those have their uses too. Her eyes twinkled with amusement. As they prepared to depart the village that afternoon, Adana requested a final stop. The gold vehicles pulled up before the small, dilapidated hut at the village's edge where she had spent her one night as a beggar's wife. Why here? Chitty asked as they stepped out. To remember, Adana replied simply. This was a turning point, where deception began to transform into truth. She studied the humble structure that had housed the first honest conversation between them, then turned to face a man who had entered her life as a lie, but was becoming something genuine. Our beginning was not my choosing, she said quietly, but our path forward will be one we create together. Not your father's test or my uncle's manipulation, but our own truth. Chitty took her hand, his touch now familiar after the week they had navigated together. I began this journey seeking a wife who would value me beyond wealth. I found someone who teaches me to see value beyond anything I was taught to measure. As they returned to the waiting vehicles, villagers lined the road to witness their departure. The orphan girl and the disguised heir returning to a life of privilege but leaving behind a promise of opportunity for others. The golden cars gleamed in the afternoon sun as they pulled away, not just symbols of wealth but a transformation of an orphan finding power, a rich man finding humility, and both discovering that true value lies not in appearances but in the character revealed when all pretenses fall away. Mama Nkechi watched in the shade of a baobab tree, her knowing smile following the dust trail left by the departing convoy. 7 days, she murmured to herself. Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. The golden cars disappeared over the horizon, but their impact on the small village and the lives of the two people who had found each other through deception but would build a future on truth would endure long after the dust had settled. Did you see how she confronted her uncle but chose wisdom over revenge? Our orphan girl who was forced to marry a beggar has become a powerful woman who's changing lives. If you believe in karma and that good things come to those with pure hearts, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Comment below. Would you have forgiven your uncle or taken revenge if you were in Adana's position? Share this video with someone who knows that true wealth isn't about gold cars, but about using your blessings to help others. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next incredible story that will show you how fate can change your life in the blink of an eye.